Well, you guys have asked for it. The full rundown on the Gerber Gear SLIMSADA and break down several design features that really put this over the top and almost make it an A+ budget pocket knife, but also a few small details that cause it to stumble across the finish line. And thank you, Gideon's Tactical family, for recommending this blade. I love it when you guys find a tool or gear item that you want to see tested here, and I knew nothing about it. A few months ago, you guys were messaging me saying, hey, have you seen this like kind of stealth drop, I guess, or something over on the Gerber website? SLIMSADA, there's good lines, good materials. Would really like to know your opinion and perspective before I lay down my hard-earned money, and I was able to get my hands on one, and I don't really know what the rollout of this knife is. Currently, when I'm making the content for this video, it's only available over on the Gerber website as well as Knife Center, and I think maybe one other small distributor. It's not widely distributed yet, so I'm not quite sure what all of that means. That means that for pricing, currently it goes between like 52 and like 62 bucks. It just depends on where you pick it up, and I'm sure as more distributors get it, that'll kind of even itself out. But that's a good price point for D2 steel. I'm super glad that Gerber decided to go with an upgraded steel versus 8CR or 7CR that we often see with their overseas produced blades. And the performance was noticeable with this 3.47 inch blade, so just under 3.5 inch blade. And the cutting edge will probably be right around 3 inches because of that large choil that we'll talk about in ergonomics in just a second. And a full flat grind, and the relief edge is excellent. The grind angles were great, and I'm just very pleased with the stone wash finish and the way that they decided to go with the edge geometry. It was so fine out of the box that it was nicking me a couple times just because of how precise the edge is, and because of the D2, it's able to have better edge stability, holding that edge for longer before you need to tune it up. Now, the handle ergonomics are an interesting feature. Rather thin. This comes in at under 3 ounces from all specs that I'm seeing online. I cannot find my weight scale. I need to buy a new one. Since moving back out of the RV, I do not know where my scale is, so I can't confirm that, but it's very light, so I would argue if it's not under 3 ounces, is right around 3 ounces for a 3.5 inch blade and a 4.5 inch overall handle. That's very impressive. The really cool thing is that you get that green micarta. I love micarta on pocket knives. If they have micarta, I immediately want that version. I just like the texture. I like the feel of it. Feels natural, more organic than, say, synthetic polymers and plastics. And so I just like that a lot. And what's cool is we got the flow-through construction that has red standoff tubes. Kind of cool, makes it a little pop a little bit, and they're more like a blood, almost more like maroon than they are red. So they're kind of low tone, but just give it a cool offset vibe. Stainless steel on the other side there. So again, impressive that it's so light for being a stainless steel. Large size hands, as you guys know, fills out well. I wasn't sure about this kind of weird hump and then cut in, but it contours over my 3 fingers right there and then splits the difference on my pinky, locking me right into place. Full grip, the micarta giving me that warm texture. The pocket clip we'll talk more about in a moment. Doesn't flare out, so it doesn't create a hot spot for ergonomics. And then it has a very large choil. I can easily use it this way and it feels totally fine, but I can easily choke up, grip the knife very nicely, and I have very good control for finer woodworking. It's so precise in the full flat grind with the edge geometry. You have to actually work at getting feather sticks, not because it's bad, but because it's so fine and so precise and steep on the edge geometry. And when you get that choil working with you, you almost have to relearn how to do it because it will slice a curl off so fast you can't keep it on the stick to have it bundle up. I don't think that's a negative. It's just something that shows the design that went into it, and then that cut-in contours all 3 other fingers there, and then the hump goes back. So that hump does not cause any issues, that hill right there on the ergonomic side. The edges all around are milled, so that is good. And the ergonomics for both choil or backup, I'm very pleased with, even in a reverse grip. No sharp angles or edges. Still being rather thin, and of course, again, being lightweight. The pocket clip is that nice flat pocket clip that Gerber's been doing a lot lately. Just kind of stands out and is unique. So many people are doing loop overs and they don't always execute them well. So if they're going to do something like this, Totally fine with me. Gives me a good little pinch point to pull out. And the downside being, though, even though it has a slit and it is a frame lock that we'll talk more about in a moment, it's not ambidextrous. So it deletes 10% of the audience. I'm sorry, you lefties, not for you. Not the end of the world for me being a righty, but you know, that does hit a little bit, and everything else in the design, a lefty could easily get behind. So it would have been nice just to have like an accent plate, maybe matching the pivot so that you could swap the pocket clip. The functionality of the pocket clip is excellent. Good little flare, enough to get over your pant pocket, but not being so obnoxious that it hurts the ergonomics. And that flare isn't so aggressive that's gonna catch onto things or scratch up your car. So now to a key feature that I really like, and it's the fact that it's got the Boss ball bearing system. So this is running on ball bearings with that really nice slit right there. Easily I do the middle finger flick, and I can't do that with most knives. I can do it every once in a while, but boom, all the time. This is one of the funnest ones to do that with. And that hole just catches very easily. It is a little sharp, not not brutal, but it definitely, you feel the edge, and it's probably a good thing just so that you can get a really good, flip. Not the smoothest ball bearing setup, that I've seen. There's definitely you gotta wiggle it a little bit, but very nice in that regard. Good stop pin back there that the blade is gonna hit. Boom, solid click with that frame lock. No rock, up, down, side to side. This is rock solid, so that's nice to see it. A lot of ball bearing, systems, there's just a lot of tolerances, so those ball bearings can move around, and then you get this rock, usually side to side with blades. This has none of that. Solid lockup. Here's my one issue with the design, and Gerber sent this over to me to test out, review, give you guys pros and cons. And as I always do here, I show you guys the ins and outs of the tool so you can make the wise choice, and I don't hold any punches. And this is what I'm seeing. This portion right here, where you engage to remove the frame lock out of the way, is almost knife edge thin. You can see how thin that is. They even milled it out, so there was obviously a tension put there, but it's so thin. And for about the first week that I had this, I had to put enough pressure that it was like it was like putting your finger on the back of a very sharp spine or something to move it out of the way. It has loosened up, so I don't have to put quite as much pressure, and I'm saying that like in a positive way, like the flex has gotten to a proper tolerance, I believe, to where it's not unbearable, but for the first week it was almost unbearable to have to put the amount of pressure that I needed on such a thin-edged piece, and they literally milled the material away. If they had left the material and left it just a little bit thicker right there, it would have been perfect and I would have no complaints, but it's noticeable on kind of the edge there, particularly for the first week or two. As you get used to it, build up a little bit of a callus and work in the blade, it seems to be doing a lot better. And if you do a disengagement motion this way where you're pulling with your finger away, then it seems to do better as well. Here's an example. Now this is a Civivi, micarta handle scales as well, and gonna have Sandvik 14C28N steel, ball bearings. This has a flipper, loop over pocket clip. Very similar in a lot of ways to the SLIMSADA. It's gonna run you about $15 more. I think it's going for about $70 right now. But hopefully you guys can see this on frame. They milled and gave you a thicker frame lock landing point for your finger. Just a lot thicker and rounded on that portion right there where all my pressure on my thumb is going to disengage the lock. So that's literally it. In many ways, this is like a better value in a lot of other aspects. As an example, this does not have an over travel plate. This is another cool thing. This is an over travel pinch plate design. I guess it's patented by Gerber, or part of like their feature that they always, I've seen on several other designs, but I guess it's kind of like their thing. So you see that micarta pad right there, that is the over travel stop for the frame lock, but it also creates a platform for you to rest your middle finger on, so that when you're opening and closing the blade, you're not putting undue pressure on the frame lock, pinching it, making it more difficult to open. That is genius, because I know certain people, particularly members of my family, like my brother and my dad, they always have difficulty with frame locks opening them because they tend to pinch them. So this alleviates any issues with that. So if you're kind of on the fence with frame locks in general, this pinch point is good, and it's just a nice little accent point. And every other attribute I'm happy with. The centering, well done. The styling, Gerber's never had issues with styling. Really cool, even that nice unique accent over the pivot, the deployment on those ball bearings, the lockup overall, the other key features with the size, the D2, you know, the micarta, the handle dimensions and how they flow together. All of that I'm very happy with, and you know, it really is that little portion there that takes it from being like an A+ knife to like a B+ knife. And so for just a few competitive options, and I'm going to have hyperlinks for you guys, not only to the SLIMSADA, but also to a few of these others that I'm going to run down for you. So if any of these make sense, always appreciate when you use those hyperlinks. And just as an example, the Affinity, the copper edition here, 3.7, but D2 steel is an option, going for about the same price point, about 50 bucks, copper tone. Very cool option, very different style. The SLIMSADA is definitely more slicey just because of that compared to the hollow grind and kind of piercing that's on the Affinity, but that's an option. And again, the Affinity even has a slightly thicker frame lock right there. I would love to see Gerber just fill out that little gap that they originally had ground in, just fill it back in and round it, and it'll be perfect. And I'd have literally nothing to complain about with the tool. And then again, just running it up against that Civivi, very similar size. The choil on the SLIMSADA is more usable than the choil on the Civivi. So something to consider there. And I believe the Civivi has a hollow or a flat, so it's not as slicey as the Gerber is. The more contouring though on the micarta is a nice little feature right there. This is a right hand only as well, so another little kind of sad detractor point, you know, there. But that is, you know, a viable frame lock option. And then again, if you kind of like the style, but you want to go American made lock back design as an option, there is again that shark bite. It's the shark belly. I'm sorry, I'm saying shark bite the whole video. Lock back, cool blade, hollow grind, lightweight, very lightweight, tip down. It's like one of only 2 knives I still have in collection that has a tip down righty only pocket clip, but it's still a pretty cool lightweight blade as an option. So guys, that's my take on the SLIMSADA. So I want to hear from you guys though. What's your take on the SLIMSADA, this design, the features that I've hit on with you guys today, pros and cons? Love reading the comments from you guys below. And again, guys, thank you so much for recommending it to me so I can get my hands on it and break it down for us so we can make that wise choice when we're throwing our hard-earned money after tools that we love to use. And so with that, check out the other video, subscribe if you're not yet a subscriber, and until next time, always remember, stay equipped, stay prepared. I'll see you out there.